right. Hey, everyone. Hopefully, thank you for that musical intro, Rodrigo. Hi, everyone. I'm going to let a couple seconds for everyone to file in. I hope that woke you up, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. But in the meantime, while we're waiting everyone to come into the room, go ahead, find the chat, drop in where you're calling in from, how many TNN events you've been to, and if you've been to Colombia before, what your favorite part about it is. We have a very interactive presentation today with Rodrigo, and I'm just going to let you guys connect for a few seconds and say hey to each other while I go ahead and introduce myself. Yes, I am representing my Colombia jersey. Very excited for this presentation. This is the national team jersey for people that don't know. It's a fake one. Don't worry. I got it for like 10 US dollars. Probably couldn't afford a real one. But I'm Leah. I am a TNN event host, and I am the leader of the LA chapter. And I'm also the creator of the Ticket to Anywhere travel podcast. So super happy to have all of you here today. And while you're chatting it up in the chat, I'm going to share my screen and go through a few housekeeping items, especially for those that haven't been to a nomadic network event before. So like I mentioned, this is a nomadic network event. Computer's loading. We are a global community of travel enthusiasts started by Nomadic Matt at the end of 2019. And we were going live in 22 plus cities around the world and connecting with each other, supporting each other, teaching each other how to travel for longer, better, cheaper. And, you know, just sharing our love of travel in bars and restaurants everywhere when we could, you know, be around each other. Of course, we pivoted to virtual events once the coronavirus all put us into lockdown, which is actually kind of cool because now we can run more events with more people around the world. Like Rodrigo is in Bogota right now, like he's not even close to me. So we can catch you whether you're at work or in a hammock in a tropical paradise. And we do have different kinds of events. We have these speaker events where someone presents and then we do a Q&A at the end, which is what today is. We have book clubs, which is once a month. Our next book club is next Wednesday, March 3rd with David Farley. And then we have super casual happy hours, which are really fun. You don't have to live in that area to attend these happy hours. You can just connect with people wherever you want. They're really fun, really casual. We play games and get to know each other. Usually talk about a lot of our favorite food on travels too, which is nice. So a few things to keep in mind. Thank you. If you have your camera on, we love to see your faces. You don't have to have it on, obviously. You will be muted. So please use the chat to drop your questions in the chat, and please start it with the word question so I can pull it out and Rodrigo can answer it later. So we're here to have fun, and Rodrigo's doing this because he has this amazing travel company that he wants to let you know about, and the knowledge that he has to share with us about his beautiful country. So we're very grateful for that. And if you're interested, or anyone you know is interested in the TNN replays, we invite you to become a Patreon member. You can head to patreon.com, or you can scan the QR code and you'll see the bulleted list of all these amazing perks that you can get becoming a Patreon member for the Nomadic Network and Nomadic Matt. So with that being said, I just want to let you all know that Rodrigo was born and raised in Bogota, still in Bogota. You know, after college, he started backpacking, exploring the world, but realized that Colombia has so much untapped potential, and then started his own amazing travel company. So Rodrigo, I'm going to hand the floor over to you, and you can let everyone know more about Colombia.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and thanks everyone for keeping the camera open. It's great to enter a community and to see faces, because you know, in these days usually you just see like black squares all around. So it's great to see everyone. I see that Mark has a background. Is that Bogota, Mark Peterson? If I'm not wrong, yeah, I think
It's South Korea. It's where I live now.
Okay, cool.
But I've been to Cartagena before. Really amazing place.
Oh, cool. Yeah, lovely place for sure. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to try not to talk much about my company. I talk about my company all the time. And since this is a more intimate event among travelers, and I'm a passionate traveler myself, I'm going to be talking about how travel changed my life and how changing my life through travel, we have been changing with Impulse the lives of thousands of people in Colombia using travel as our tool for social transformation. So I'm going to be talking about probably about 30 minutes or 40 minutes. It's going to be interactive. And to start with, I just wanted to get to know you a bit better. And I had prepared some questions for you. So please be aware of your screen. I'm going to be popping up the first poll right now. And the question is, have you been to Colombia before? Yes, no, or yes, I'm Colombian. I know that there are some people from Colombia here. Some of my team members, friends, colleagues are connecting here. So we're filling in the surveys. It's 40 people connected and we're reaching almost 40. Oh God, you're fast. It's 37 answers. Just give me a couple of seconds till we end the poll and we throw the results. Right, so I see that 80% of you have not been to Colombia yet, which is great. I'm gonna be talking about the perspective of Colombia from a Colombian who has worked his way from already 12 years in travel industry. For those who are Colombian, bienvenidos, parceros. Un gusto tenerlos acá a todos. Ahí veo gente de mi equipo. And for those who have been to Colombia, thanks for having been to Colombia. Actually, we need you here, and every traveler is a great opportunity for this country to move forward. I'm going to be going deeper into that idea later. So I'm going to share the second one. Wait, I'm not an expert on this. Okay, right. So this one, I just need you to promise that you're going to be completely honest and you will talk from your heart and from your gut. So when I say Colombia, you say, right. When I say Colombia, you say. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, it's like it seems like a race between the different bars that I'm seeing in my screen. So it's 42 people connected, 36 answers. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds for those of you who haven't filled in your answers yet. And we're going to see what is the number one thing that all these audience is relating Colombia with. Right. Okay, we're done. And Paul, share results. Yeah, here we go. Great, coffee. Oh, thank you so much that Narcos was not number one. It's number two. Okay, I get you. I tried to see Narcos. I have to be honest. I tried to see Narcos because all my customers were talking about Narcos. And it was so frustrating because this guy is not even Colombian. His accent is not really Paisa. So you know, it was like, no, I just ended up like watching probably Breaking Bad or something like that. So yeah, coffee, as you know, Colombian coffee is a huge thing. Not only the coffee, the quality itself, but it's also nomination of origin. So it means that Colombian coffee is actually a brand. Sadly, most of the quality coffee goes to export. That's changing gradually. And the coffee has also helped the social transformation process in a very dramatic way. And we also see Shakira. Yes, she's Colombian. For those of you who think she's Mexican or from the Middle East, she's Colombian. Football, of course. Leah is wearing the jersey. If you come to Colombia and you wear a jersey, you're gonna have, and you wear the jersey of the Colombian national team, you're gonna have the doors open to you everywhere. People love football and especially the national team. J Balvin, yes, he's getting big, right? And he's Colombian. And of course, peace, 5% of you. And I would say peace for sure. Right, and the number three, now we're getting serious. Now we're gonna talk about travel. And I wanna know if travel has transformed your life. Interesting. Right, so we're 38 out of 43 people connected, 39. I'm just gonna give a couple of seconds and here we go. Right, so wow, we see that we have here an audience who has been transformed by travel and that's amazing because I think you can really relate to the story that I'm going to be sharing with you. A bit, yeah. It's also nice and not quite. Yeah, I mean, some people travel just for fun, not for transformational purpose, which is great. Keep on traveling, and if you do that, you'll know that you go from not quite to a bit, and then from a bit to absolutely when you become an avid traveler. So, with that, I'm going to be sharing my presentation that I put together especially for this audience. I hope, yeah, this is my Spotify. Actually, we have great playlists with Impulse if you want to look for them in Spotify. Right, so I'm going to be talking about travel as a peace building movement in Colombia. Just to start off by sharing a couple of pictures of what a childhood in Colombia was like. I grew up in a country in war, like all the fellow Colombians that are connected here and all this generation, and seeing these kind of pictures in the news was relatively normal. I remember this was massacre perpetuated either by FARC or paramilitaries or by the military. It's the same. I mean, the war only has victims, and it was normalized to see all this suffering in the news. And it was, I was a kid when I started to see these images. I was a kid when I saw these images recurrently. That was a teacher putting duct tape on the windows. Anyone can imagine why duct tape on the windows of the classroom? No, it was not a football ball striking the windows. It was actually the threat of a bomb. The year I was born, 1989, there were more than 100 terrorist attacks, mostly perpetuated by narcos. So when I was a kid, the windows of the classroom used to have duct tape in case there was a bomb, the class wouldn't come and attack us, right? And that was pretty normal. Also pretty normal. I mean, for those of you living in Washington, D.C., I think this is a common image right now, like seeing the military in the streets, but we go about our daily life and we have like militaries heavily armed in the streets of the cities, which is, I mean, military is supposed to be like fighting for the nation, but that's not the truth in Colombia. Well, they are fighting for the nation in a way, but it's kind of normal to see military everywhere. And I remember having recurrent nightmares about my dad being kidnapped by FARC or by any other art group. This is a picture of Medellin. And just outside Medellin, this is a group of paramilitary group, right? So I remember like all these memories, and of course growing up, I mean, I wouldn't say it like I suffered because it was very normalized, but at some point I realized that I had a lot of fear for my country. I had a lot of fear for my fellow Colombians, and I thought that the only safe place that I could be was like my home or my school or the shopping mall, and the rest was like a black hole of danger. So I started traveling when I was very young, thanks to my mom and dad. They were avid travelers as well. And traveling to Colombia started my own healing process. And I'm going to share this story with you. Yes, I'm this guy on the right. A lot of the things, I grew a beard since then. And I must have been like, I think 13. That's my younger brother. That's my dad. And that was one of my first trips to this beautiful place in Colombia called Cocuy. And that's a national park with the snow peaks, beautiful place. And I remember that after being guided by this amazing guide, who he was very humble, like from the countryside. And after that, my dad said that in a conversation he had with him, he learned that he was involved in a guerrilla group before. So I was like, how come? I mean, I would imagine like all the guerrillas are bad and, with scars on their faces, and they're like these thugs. And this guy was, well, he was such a nice guy. And I understood that it's not about the people, it's like a phenomenon that is going on. So this is the start of how traveling started to change the stereotypes and change my fear for my own country and for my own territory. And I was not surprised when I started to realize that travel started to move from my passion into being a project. So this is a picture of my first office. That was my laptop and that was my desk. And that was a picture on the left of me and one of my first customers. I started guiding in Bogota, my hometown, when I was in university, I was only this guy. Since I spoke English when I was young, anytime there was a foreigner, they were like, hey, Rodrigo, you take this guy to Andrés Carneres or to the city center or to wherever. So that was very natural. And what started as a passion, I started to make a living out of that. And then we started scaling and evolving, and I started gradually in understanding the special aspects of the culture of Colombia, like the music, like the coffee here on the right, and building experiences based on this culture and the things that are unique to Colombia, that are accessible and that it kind of breaks the barriers for travelers coming to Colombia so they can go deeper in their experience. So that was a lot of years of building tours, products, guiding, growing the team. We started to grow. We got recommended by Lonely Planet. We were big in TripAdvisor. And then 2016 came. And that was when, after 3 years of negotiations with FARC, which was the major guerrilla group of 10 million people strong, they finally struck an agreement with the government. And the agreement had to go to a referendum, which is basically asking the population, like, do you agree with the agreement that we have achieved with FARC after 3 years negotiating Caravana? And of course, you know, I was the golden opportunity, right? This is the end of war. This is the moment for reconciliation. Without this guerrilla, everything will go great. And basically the conditions of the agreement were something like this. If there's someone who works in politics here, they can slam me because this is a very simplified version of it. But let's say something. Let's say we ask Colombia whether you agree to finish this 50-year-old conflict that has left more than 10 million victims and giving FARC 2 seats in Congress and forgiveness in exchange for truth and reparation. It means that they wouldn't be going to jail and they would incorporate into political life as a political part, as a fast track to being a political party, right? And just a small hint, which is important, the direct victims of war have said yes already. So the victims were part of the negotiations, and it was very important for them, the part of exchange for the truth and reparation. So some of you might know what happened, but I love that a lot of you have not been to Colombia yet. So we're gonna make a poll here and we're gonna run again the referendum, okay? So I'm gonna be sharing the poll again. Please vote for Colombia's peace agreement. So Colombia's peace agreement, nomadic network. Do you agree, my dear nomadic network, with Colombia's peace agreement or no? Okay, let's fill in your votes. Okay, it's 22 out of 41, 30. Okay, I'm gonna count to 3 and I'm gonna end the poll. 1, 2, and 3. Great, what everyone expected, peace agreement done. Okay, so, but the sad story, it was that was not the case for Colombia. So after the referendum, we started to see like these kind of headlines. Sadly, the referendum didn't pass, and that was heartbreaking. That was heartbreaking because the main political party who was in power, it's very right-wing, they're still in power. They're not supporting the peace agreement. And there's a lot of interest. I'm not gonna go into that. I'm not gonna come here to talk about politics, but the fact is that the peace agreement didn't go in the polls. So in that moment, I was so heartbroken. And I was wondering, if going to the polls, you know, that's the thing with democracy. You love it when democracy works in your favor, but you hate it when it doesn't. And in this moment, I hated democracy. I was like, what can I do if going to the poll and putting an X on a paper didn't work? So I started thinking like, why can I do as a travel entrepreneur? You know, I saw like travel so far away from the actual thing happening on the ground in the communities. So that, you know, after that, the president back then, he ran it through Congress. He made a couple of things here and there. I'm not going to go into detail, but some months after the peace agreement was actually signed. But this moment was enough for me to wonder, what is my role in being the change that I want my country to have? So some months after that, I got introduced by a friend and colleague who is connected in this call to this guy. He's Jaime. He was a gangster. He had been the leader of a gangster for a lot of years. He went to Yale. And after Yale, he came out of Yale with this idea of transforming his life for the sake of his kids. He was recruited when he was only 11 years old or 8 years old. And most of his family was killed in the drug war. And, he has a very interesting life story, and he had his own ambition to start working in tourism. So I got introduced to this guy. It was his idea to work in tourism, not mine. And I started working with him in 2016, building this tour that is called Breaking Borders, which is this story of this community that has survived a very violent war, and they're now transitioning to a more peaceful place. And it's amazing to see how the murder rate of this community dropped from something like 100 a year to 0 after tourism started. So I got to understand this, and is that a lot of suffering can be avoided if we were more intentional with the way we travel. And I want to share with you this picture, and that was when tourism was taking off. You see that Jaime is right there sitting just below the logo with a group of travelers from Impulse, and that has been the golden opportunity for this community to reinvent themselves and to stop killing each other. So talking about suffering, with the previous message about a lot of suffering can be avoided if we just were traveling more intentionally, I'm going to be quoting Yoda, my master. And so Yoda says, fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. So I'm going to break this because Yoda was like this. I mean, the theory of change of impulse, it's all based on Yoda teaching. So if fear equals suffering, according to Master Yoda, and we can agree that empathy is the antidote to fear, and I think we as a travel community, we can agree that travel fosters empathy. That's the number one thing for travel, right? So if you follow the math, then we got to the conclusion that travel is the antidote to suffering, right? And that's that's Yoda's word interpreted in a different way. And this is the conclusion that I got in this moment. And that was the idea that put me in this journey of transformation, not only for transforming myself, but transforming other people and thousands of Colombians right now. And it's conscious travelers are the lifeblood of a peace building movement in Colombia. Let me read that again. Conscious travelers are the lifeblood of a peace building movement in Colombia. So I'm going to be using a metaphor here so you can follow me, because I'm going to be talking about you guys. I'm going to be talking about the travelers that are coming to Colombia, or that want to come to Colombia, or that are dreaming to come to Colombia, or maybe you haven't, but now I hope that you're put it on your list sometime. So number one, we're going to be thinking about a movement as a physical body. So we're going to have like these three components to a movement. It's the blood, the muscles and bones, and then the heart. So once again, the blood are the conscious travelers. Then the muscles and bones are community-based initiatives that I'm going to be talking about later. And the heart, what's the heart? That's the impulse experiences. So I understood our role related to the role of travelers. And all these things have to be there and have to be working well and working together for a movement to happen. So with these three things in mind, I'm going to be talking about you guys first, about the blood. So the blood is, again, a doctor would slam me and would say like, oh yeah, it's much more complex than that. And if there's any physician here, please excuse me. This is just an example, but just bear with me for a second. So we can think about blood as bringing oxygen, nutrients, and healing. And I'm going to talk about how you travelers can bring oxygen, nutrients, and healing to this movement. First, the oxygen is the motivation. There are so many communities doing the right thing. And in the moment that they start noticing that travelers all across the world are going to visit them and taking their tours and then getting interested in their transformation process and not about their violent history, not about whether they were drug dealers or not about, you know, how to make cocaine or this kind of nonsense, but really interested in their life story and the way that it has transformed and the decisions they have made to emerge from this violent past. That's the best motivation. Just to give you a very brief example, there's a community-based enterprise in Medellin that is called Unión Latina. They basically have a dance school for youth to prevent them from engaging with violent activity like gangs and drug trade. So this dance school, all these kids dream with being international artists. They dream with traveling abroad and being international artists. But when we bring travelers to this community, they become international travelers instantly. They don't have to travel to the world because the world is traveling to them. So when they perform in front of international audience, they are fulfilling the dream of being international artists. Second one is nutrients, is cash, is the money honey. That's important, and that's very crucial about where you're spending your cash when you're traveling. And in the case of Colombia, if these nutrients go to the right place, we're going to be fighting the war against the drug-based economies. This is a picture of Don Juan Antonio. He's a leader of a project called Cacaoteros, and they basically are trading the coca crops for cacao crops. And that he's holding in his hand, if you didn't know, that's a cacao kernel. Yes, that's where chocolate comes from. And the experience that they have done is about engaging travelers in the process of chocolate. And this way, travel is bringing them cash to be able to substitute war-based economies like growing coca leaves, which is the raw material for cocaine. And then we have the healing parts, and the healing are the white cells. So some people do a lot of healing when traveling, especially in Colombia. And the white cells, in our case of Impulse, are the domestic travelers. And that's our case. That's a picture of, and that was only a year ago. That's me in the far right of this picture. And that's in a place called Caguán. Caguán was the stronghold of FARC. Actually, the most malicious part of the FARC was in this territory, was heavily bombarded. The most terrible war breakout area, and after peace agreement, a group of them decided to start a rafting operator. So I got to visit them last year, and for me, that was completing a circle because I was basically going in a river in the same direction and putting my life and trusting my life to a rafting guide who in some point of my childhood was this imaginary threat to my life. So that completed the circle, and that's healing, that's hardcore peace building. And we're connecting these kind of initiatives to bring together two sides of the society that are broken. And also there's a lot of healing with, I mean, some of you are traveling to Colombia can be oblivious to all the history, but some of you can also heal from different life stories that happen, and they make a full circle when having these kind of experiences. Then I'm going to be talking about muscles and bones for a second. And these are the heroes. These are the great guys. These are the people in the ground who are making the impact possible. And here we're talking about peace building grassroots initiatives impacting communities and creating conditions for peace. I'm not going to go one by one, although I would love to hear every single story. We already talked about breaking borders, which is right here right in the center. We already talked about Distrito Chocolate, right here, Don Juan. We already talked about rafting for peace. This is the dance school that I just talked to you about. These are the rafting guides. And like these stories, there are hundreds of different scores across the territory. And Impulse has been working with them and connecting them to the travel industry, bringing the lifeblood, bringing the travelers the motivation, the cash they need for making these projects to be successful and to thrive. And finally, I'm going to talk about Impulse and Impulse as the heart. Why the heart? Because we're pumping blood. And one thing about the heart is we are also a muscle. So we are also a community-based project. It's a community of change makers that believe that tourism can change the reality of a whole country. And we take this thing of the heart very seriously, so seriously that heart is the framework, is the DNA to the experiences we built. H stands for human-centered. We know that everything is about the human interaction, and it's about how we see ourselves as humans and not as productive units, and also how we see travelers as humans and not as a cash, and not only as cash coming to our, I mean, the interaction between travelers and locals is always a central aspect. The second one is the economic opportunities. As I said before, the cash is so important, and to have the resiliency these communities need, they need to have opportunities, and these opportunities need to be economic. There's not a way to make a movement with an empty stomach. The A stands for authentic experiences. So we never put anything on a stage. Everything is as it is. It's raw, it's real. Sometimes it's not what everyone expects of dresses and, you know, the indigenous with the feathers and all that. They just put that out for tourists. We don't do that. We just like things as they are. Regenerative storytelling, it means something very powerful about the hard experiences is that all these people find in the tours and in telling their story in a different way, it's a mean to reinvent their future and to give a different meaning to their past. So when the communities are having a storytelling that is empowering them about the social transformation that they're going through, and that's what they are repeating, it's like a commitment that they're repeating over and over and over. And also it's changing the stereotypes of people around the world. People who travel to Colombia are regenerating the stereotype, and we need you guys in the world to see us differently, because if you don't see us differently, and if Narcos is still the #2 thing that comes up after when thinking about Colombia, that's what we're going to be for the rest of our history. Top quality, again, it's impulse. We do everything top quality. We make sure that things are on time, sanitized, fair payments. You get what you pay for, and we make sure that the experience is always very meaningful, and all the conditions are there for you to enjoy. Just gonna be talking briefly about this example. This in Comuna 13. This is one of the community-based enterprises we work with. It's a collective of Afro-Colombian artists. They do hip hop and urban music. And what they do, their impact strategy is basically engaging youth into art to give them a dream and to avoid them from engaging into illegal activities. Very similar to the dance group that we saw before. We run a tour with them. It's called the Afro Tour in Comuna 13. Comuna 13, some of you who have been to Colombia might have heard about this place. This is another area of Comuna 13. This is not the famous escalators with all the shops and things. This is the real area of Comuna 13, and this experience is personally one of my favorites, and this is the reason why I want to bring it up. And Rafting for Peace, once again, that has been very impactful for me. These two guys that you see in the picture are former combatants, and being with them and interacting with them and spending three days with them and listening to their stories was really, for me, understanding that every conflict has always two sides. And in my personal story, I always believe one side and never question the other side. But after being there and sharing with them, I started to realize that there were no winners, no losers. There was not the right band. There was not the wrong band. It was only a war that has to be finished, and that all of us are humans and we all need a second chance. So this is just to share with you I feel very proud about having engaged 20 community-based projects into the experiences with Impulse. And we have all through our history connected 2,240 travelers with these community-driven projects. And we have generated $54,000 in direct income for these communities. That's a lot. A dollar can go very far, and you never underestimate the impact of a dollar in these kind of communities. And thanks to this, I'm very happy to share it with you. Those who are in the team, we are still in the celebration mode. Last week, for all the work that these amazing communities have done. This is not Impulse. Again, this is a whole movement composed of travelers, composed of the community-based initiatives, and Impulse, which is the heart pumping. We all together got this recognition from the UNWTO, which is the travel division of United Nations, as the startup that has made the largest contributions to peace and social justice worldwide. So we're very happy for that, and all the recognition goes to the community-based projects and for all the travelers that are believing and making part of this movement. And just to end with a thought, since you're travelers, think about there are many invisible movements going on anywhere I travel to. What role do I want to have in this movement? Thank you. So before you leave and before we move to questions, I just want to take this chance to make a quick announcement and a quick promotion. We are going on our flagship trip, Sounds of Colombia. That's a 7-day fully immersion trip into the cradle of cumbia. A lot of you have heard about cumbia. So this is the music genre that has taken the world, and we're going to go right there when it was originated and learned from the masters. They're going to be opening their doors to their houses, to their communities, and they are music masters, most in their 70s, 80s. Most of them have traveled the world, filled stadiums, and this is a great chance to go to their communities, to their houses, and to share this deep cultural and transformative experience with them. So I'm going to be showing this quick 2-minute video. I hope I'm sharing audio, but just to make sure, I'm just going to stop it here and do it again. Just 1 second. Okay, yes, sharing sound. Here we go.
Ofelia tenía un platico, Ofelia tenía un platico, que era de lo más belloso, y Rafael el goloso se lo rompió. Goza la cumbia colombiana. Bien fina, que en cumbia se respeta, porque les dio una estirpe bien fina, que en cumbia se respeta. Y esta es una tierra de poeta, y este es San Jacinto Bolívar. Y esta es una tierra de poeta, este es San Jacinto Bolívar. Luis Olivera Villamizar y José García Aguilera, de la mano con el folclor.
So yeah, that's the trip. If you have any questions about it, you can just reach out to us on our social media. Actually, I just forgot to share here the last part of the presentation, some contact details. Yeah, where are we? Okay, somewhere. All right, so these are the contact details. Feel free to reach out for me directly for any question, any inquiry, anything you feel like. This is the Instagram holder, impulse_travel. And you can also find us in LinkedIn for those of you who are part of the travel industry and want to learn more about what we do and the updates and the work that we're doing with impact and travel. We're always posting new stuff on LinkedIn too. So thank you so much for your attention and for being such a wonderful audience. I miss a lot of the conversations in the chat I'm going to be updating here, and I'm going to pass it back to Leah.
Oh my goodness. I think I can speak for everyone, Rodrigo, when we say that video made us want to go to Colombia like an hour ago. Literally, some people in the chat were like, I'm looking up flights right now. I was like, wait, no, let's go with Impulse Travel. So, wow, what a presentation. And thank you for some of the history and the changes that the country has gone through, before and after the deal, and then how you came through, lived your life, and how you've made an impact on travel, especially starting your company. So we got a lot of great questions in the chat, and a lot of people were filling in the chat with their experiences as well. So that's great to see. I have a little tip for everyone who hasn't used Zoom much before, or this is your first event. If you're on a desktop and you want to save the chat for whatever reason, recommendations, connect with others, there's 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner. Click the dots and hit save, and it will save to a Zoom folder on your computer. And this only works if you're on desktop, not on mobile, unfortunately. So, all right, let's get into some of these awesome questions. Let's see. Let's go with Laura's first. She wants to know more about Impulse Travel. Can you give us an idea of how many people are normally on your tours, how long most of them are? I want to add to that, like, how curated are they by the guests, or is it like a big surprise when they get there? What is it like?
Well, we started running walking tours. That was our origin, walking tours in Bogota with very small groups. That hasn't changed. We operate for small groups only. Most of the things we run are private. We don't have set departures really for these kind of trips, like the longer trips like Sounds of Colombia, or for other longer trips we're doing to the Amazon. We're putting out dates and for people to sign up. Usually these groups are about 8 to 12 people max. We do, our bread and butter is having people who want to come to Colombia and contact us, and we plan a whole itinerary for them, and we include all different experiences, and we make hotel recommendations. We also do the domestic flights, and we take care of all the experience within the destination. But we also, if you go to our site, you will see that we also promote the experiences separately. So most of it is just private. If we have, in high season, sometimes we have like 2 couples going in the same experience the same day in the same language. So in this case, we make it a group of 4 with a guide. But that's usually not the case. Usually everything is run private.
Okay, great. You brought up the Amazon, which is great because Alex actually had a question on, how about a conscious way to visit the Amazon, or if you said Impulse also has trips there as well?
Yeah, we're working with, so one of the things that the pandemic brought is that we're getting so close to our co-operators. There are many amazing travel companies in Colombia that have built their expertise and their relationship over years with local communities. And there's this company owned by a friend, and he has spent his life building relationships with isolated communities in the Amazon. They're not uncontacted, of course, but they're very isolated. And it's, I actually just went on a trip with him in January, and that was really, really deep and really amazing. So we have other 3 dates coming up this year. It's a 3-day trip to the Colombian Amazon. The group is usually from 6 to 10 people max. And if there's anyone who's interested, you can just reach out to us on our either LinkedIn or, the easiest for us is just email, and you can go to our website and fill in the contact form. That's the easiest way to reach out to us.
Awesome.
Cool,
Alex says,
please
thank
do.
you. Yeah.
The trip is cool. Really, really amazing. Actually, if you look out for you've got 5 people. Okay, let's do it. If you look for I'm gonna put here my personal Instagram. And here you will see it's one of my latest posts. There are 10 pictures of this trip to the Amazon. And you or anyone in the audience can just feel free to reach out to me directly on Instagram. Thank you, Leah.
Yeah, no worries. Oh, and I believe it looks like you have a coworker in the chat as well. We have a Rafting for Peace tour in the Amazon. I think it's a coworker. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, it's it's the Amazon. Let's say it's part of. It's not technically the Amazon, but it's bordering between the mountain range and the Amazon. That's where the transition goes on. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we have Rafting for Peace. We are also announcing groups for Rafting for Peace. And if you have 5 people, and if you can do both, wow. You will be. I mean, you will have like a transformation you haven't seen in your life. These 2 experiences combined are.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to get back into some questions about Colombia in general and then your experience. When you first started guiding and giving tours, I think anyone that lives in a big populous tourist destination feels the weight of what you had to do in college. But like, were you accepting payment? Were you using something like couch surfing? Like until you got Impulse Travel up and running, was it just like, you doing this all for free?
No, well, as I said before, sometimes there were like friends of friends coming and they were like, oh, go with Rodrigo. He's going to take you and see the city. And I used to do a lot of couch surfing. So I hosted, I also surfed. And for those, of course, I didn't charge. And I still show around people and friends and I still show them around without charging. But at some point, of course, that became something that I put on the internet with a price tag. And I started to make a living out of that when I was in college.
Yes, that's great because people will pay for it. You're already doing it. And, people value that kind of thing. So they're willing to like invest in it. A trip to Colombia is an investment with people who know what they're doing. So good for you. What is the sentiment of locals towards travelers who mean well and do well when they visit Colombia? Like, do they feel it's overrun by tourists now? Obviously, there are the tourists and travelers who aren't so respectful, but
it's absolute love. It's amazing, and we get it over and over with our travelers. And when we make surveys after travelers come to Colombia, and we ask travelers what was the most important, what was the most special part of your trip, and consistently we get people. So, and those of you who have been to Colombia can either deny that or support that, but it's really amazing to see how, we have been so close to tourism for generations and generations that seeing people coming is like a victory. It's like, oh yes, we're worth it, right? So of course, there are some areas in the country where tourism has not developed the way I wanted, and we're starting to see some clashes between mass tourism and locals. And that has been the case, for example, like Taganga, or in some parts of Cartagena that has happened, or even in Bogota, where there's, we're starting to see some areas with over tourism. But overall, I would say that people are very welcoming and very warm with travelers.
Oh, that's so
especially
wonderful.
Have the jersey. So
yeah. Actually, I remember, I've been in many a taxi in Colombia, but one driver had asked me, he's like, how do you like my country? And I'm like, I love it. I've been here 3 months, whatever. I'm obsessed, coffee, I visited here. And he's like, good, go home and tell everybody about it. Like, go home and tell everybody the good stuff about our country. So they come in and, give us more tourism dollars. So I was like, oh, of course I will. So, oh, that's so great to hear. Okay. Kara wants to know, is teaching English in Colombia a big industry?
Well, there are a lot of people that come and find teaching English as, and there are companies that are doing that, people who want to volunteer and they can link them with different projects or schools. And, that's not really my industry. Yeah. But I know that there's a lot of people coming for that. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. And I think the same, in the chat, people are asking about like becoming a digital nomad there, which I think is a touchy subject sometimes. But I know one of our members, Catalina, is in Jardín right now, which is stunning. I didn't get to go, but she's working from there.
Beautiful.
And it's just, yeah, it's I think it's a good, it sounds like a great place that people can go and kind of settle down for a little bit and work remotely and, you know, give back to the local community while they're there. So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I think both are, you know, people are going there to work, people are going there to teach as well. All right, so let's see. I think it's Ximena. I think I pronounced that correctly. Ximena and a few others want to know what are, I know it always turns back into COVID, but you know, traveling times are different right now. So like, what are the COVID restrictions like, you know, getting into the country, but also what is it like when you're there? Like, are you guys using masks? Have you limited capacity? You know, we're living in a very different world in the US here, and we still don't really have it under control. So interested to hear what it's like in Colombia these days.
Yeah, I have my mask right here. And yes, people are wearing masks. So the situation has been back and forth, like in every country. Like at some point, like in the summer, everyone was out, and for the Christmas Eve and celebrations, and then we have like a surge in the cases again, and very strict curfews and lockdowns once again. But the cases are going down once again, so the restrictions are going down once again. And I think it's like every country. In terms of vaccines, the vaccines already started, not as fast as everyone would like to, but that's already underway. And the restrictions, I mean, I'm not going to go through a list of restrictions because they can change next week, but usually no quarantine upon arrival. You are asked, you're currently being asked a test to enter Colombia. It depends on your country. You're going to be asked a test to go back. If it's the States, you at this point, you need a test to go back. And you don't need to do quarantine for, if you have the test, you're cool. The thing is that a lot of things are closed. So if you were to travel right now, some things are going to be closed. I would just give it a month because cases are going down and restrictions are easing once again.
That's really good that cases are going down. And I mean, I know you said the vaccine rollout was slow, but at least it's getting there. I know in the Philippines, like, I don't even think they have it yet. So my parents are from the Philippines, but it's like some countries are able to roll it out quickly because you have to purchase them. You know, it's a process. So,
yeah.
Okay, very interesting to know. Yes, if you didn't know that, if you're leaving the US to come back in, you have to have, I believe, a negative test. And if you're coming back to California or LA, you have to sign all these waivers, pay a bunch of money, trying to discourage you from unnecessary travel still. So I think it's Linzu. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but Linzu wants to know if there are any tours or you do anything with San Andres, the island in the north.
Well, not yet. We don't have the connections and the tours set up. I mean, we've been 11 years in business. So one of our promise is that we don't sell anything that we don't know very well. Although I've been to San Andres 3 times, we haven't done the whole work of setting up the operations there. So we don't have operations in San Andres as yet. Okay.
It's okay. That will be amazing, I think. And there's like Providencia nearby-ish. It's a good diving spot, I believe. Yeah. So besides Bogota, Rodrigo, what other areas of Colombia are your favorites? You don't have to answer. You can just say the whole country.
Okay, who made this question? Okay. Well, there are so many areas. A place that I really connect very deeply is Medellin, because Medellin has been amazing in their effort to social transformation, and they have been an example for many other cities. The social entrepreneurship in Medellin is just amazing. So this is the reason why I love Medellin so much. The Caribbean is so beautiful. Tayrona and Palomino, the beaches up there are just stunning. And the Sierra Nevada, which is this mountain, which is the highest mountain range close to the ocean in the world. And that place has magic of its own. It's one of these chakras of the earth, like the Himalayas or like any of these very energetic points. So this is a place that is really close to my heart. Also the Pacific region, Chocó department, the Pacific meets the jungle. It's a very pristine place. Infrastructure is very poor in terms of tourism. There are like very small lodges. Getting there is very hard. You have to fly. There are no roads to access this part of the country, but that's part of the magic and the ancestral culture on all the African connection to the ancestrality that is there is beautiful, and the food is just second to none. And these other places, the Amazon. I mean, I was recently in this expedition in the Amazon, and it was so special, and it was so deep, and to see like thousands and thousands of kilometers of jungle that is pristine. I mean, there's no deforestation at all in this area where I went, and communities are so original in the sense of the way that they live and the way to understand the universe, and the way to share it with travelers just for the sake of sharing and not really like expecting like something in return. That was very transformative, and the Amazon really got to a very special place in my heart.
Oh, thank you so much. You just gave everyone a bunch of amazing ideas, but it's great to hear from, a local who's still living there where else they should visit, and especially with impulse travel. So thank you so much, Rodrigo. I do know I want to be conscious of your time. Everyone, I dropped Rodrigo's contact information for himself and Impulse Travel in the chat. If you want to look him up, if your question wasn't answered, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer if you just reach out to him directly. So we loved learning about your company and how it's making an impact through Colombia right now, and even a little bit of history and how we can travel Colombia responsibly moving forward. So with that being said, I'm just going to close out with a couple of last slides. And thank you everyone for being here. If you found value in this community, like I mentioned earlier, we invite you to become a Patreon member. So there are different levels of this. It's under Nomadic Matt, help support Nomadic Matt and the Nomadic Network. You'll get all the replays, personal stories, input on the content, live Q&As, all types of perks. So we encourage you to join us, this VIP community, if you feel that this presentation to others have given you value. Next, you'll see upcoming here, nomadicnetwork.com/events. The events for the next upcoming weeks, we have them planned out, I believe, until June. Today, there's a Texas happy hour. That's a new chapter. So if you want to come join, welcome them. That'll be really exciting. I think they need the love after the weather the past few weeks. So it'd be nice to see some faces in there. But go to this link, find out what's happening till June. Next Wednesday, Book Club with David Farley. Is a really, really interesting book. Matt himself will be hosting this. So you can come with all of your questions, and we're just going to chat and irreverent curiosity. So it wouldn't be the same if it was just Rodrigo and myself chatting about Colombia. So thank you everyone for being here. Tell all your friends about the next one. Thank you for being your questions, your enthusiasm, your love for this beautiful country, and we'll see you next time. Thanks all. Thanks everyone.